with the details. Good evening, Pat.
Well, Greg, good evening to you. JCOPE was formed by the governor and legislative leaders, and despite the fact that the board was touted as being transparent, the bylaws in which they follow, that were agreed to by those who created the commission, allow them not to be so transparent.
By law, JCOPE's job is to investigate matters brought before them. They must release their findings on the subject, but that's it. They don't have to say who brought the investigation on, how each member voted, or release any details that went into the investigation.
Are they transparent enough?
JCOPE? No, they could do more. We think they should release the investigation records once they've concluded their investigations.
But by law, they don't have to. In fact, they are not even bound under the state's Freedom of Information law. They are immune to it because of the way the rules were written by the same people who created the board to begin with, state leaders.
In my opinion, that is a flaw in the statute itself.
Bob Freeman is with the Committee on Open Government. He says it's tough to believe the pitch JCOPE would, quote, help end an era of corruption in Albany and usher in a dramatic change in the way Albany does business, like Governor Cuomo hoped they would when he formed them. Freeman says it's a hard sell because of the lack of transparency.
Whether anything will happen this session, I suppose, remains to be seen. But certainly there is pressure to change, in some respects, the way that JCOPE operates.
Now, despite the lack of transparency, the New York Public Interest Research Group, you heard from them earlier, one of them states that the closest government group they are, the watchdog group, they give JCOPE a passing grade of a C+ in their first 2 years. That group believes that their hands are tied, JCOPE's hands are tied, when it comes to transparency, and they also believe that they have lawmakers, quote, walking around Albany on eggshells just because of their presence, Greg.
Interesting. All right. Other than an act of God, what would it take to change the bylaws and allow for freedom of information requests?
Most likely action from not God, but the state legislature, and approval from the governor. When JCOPE was being put together 2 years ago, members of NYPIRG said that they were lobbying the government to have a provision in there in the law that would force JCOPE to reassess themselves after a few years and eventually come up with their own plans as to maybe how to make themselves better. And we'll have to wait and see if that happens and if something happens with JCOPE.
And if we can see that reassessment and that evaluation. Thank you very much, Pat Bailey, reporting live from Albany tonight.